a girl from Florida vanished. The horrifying reason for her absence is revealed. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. David Lambert, a Florida guy, was sitting in the interrogation room, waiting tensely for the policeman to return. The only sound in the room was the ticking of the clock. His sister had vanished 24 years before, and the detectives working the case were keen to finally solve it. David didn't know whether he had the strength to be clean, but he was holding a secret that may blow the case wide up. In the charming northern city of St. Augustine, Florida, David and his sister Martha resided with their parents. The family was only a few kilometers from the beach from where they resided in a more rural area of the town. Despite having nothing and living in a trailer, they were a close-knit community that made a concerted effort to raise their standard of living. In November of 1985, Martha was 12 years old and David was 14. She was a junior high school student at Carolina and was incredibly fiery for someone who weighed barely 70 pounds. David claimed that the two were in constant competition and frequently got into arguments, as siblings often do. The Lambert family gathered to celebrate a Thanksgiving feast in 1985. Unfortunately, the turkey burnt, so the supper was not as good as they had intended. Enraged, David's father started verbally abusing the other members of the family. David and Martha left the trailer together in an attempt to decompress from the incident and went for a stroll around the neighborhood. The youngsters discovered Florida Memorial College's deserted campus as they were aimlessly exploring the area. Though it was in pretty bad condition, the youngsters loved to play in this area. However, it served as a kind of private playground for the impoverished children in the neighborhood. Regretfully, this would be the final instance in which Martha was seen alive. When the siblings departed the deserted college campus, Martha disappeared. This would be the start of an intense probe that would take more than 20 years to complete. The police had very little information to work with when they started the inquiry. No struggles were evident, and nobody had seen Martha on that fateful day. Well, not anybody but her brother. Though there wasn't enough evidence to establish that he had broken the law, the police were of the opinion that he knew something. The Lambert family was completely devastated by Martha's absence. David suffered for years, both financially and emotionally, when his parents divorced because they were unable to deal with the death of their daughter. David was arrested by the authorities in 2000 for drafting a fraudulent check. At that moment, he revealed something peculiar that would change the direction of the inquiry. Investigators connected to the case disclosed that David told them he was the one who killed his sister. After living with the shame for 24 years, he had to come clean at last. He claimed to have buried Martha at the Coquina mine many years ago. Martha's bones were not discovered at the Coquina mine, despite the detectives' quick search of the area. David was ultimately freed as he could not be prosecuted for a crime in the absence of hard proof. Detective Howard Cole spearheaded the effort to solve the case that had been perplexing the neighborhood for so long 10 years later. Cole made the decision to re-interview friends and relatives who were acquainted with the Lambert family when Martha vanished. Most of them thought all the indicators pointed to David, even though they had nothing fresh to report. Cole felt it was time to examine the brothers' strange narrative again. David was brought back in for interrogation by Detective Cole, and during a torturous interview procedure, he gradually started to divulge the truth about what had transpired that afternoon on Thanksgiving 1985. David claims that when they were hanging out at the deserted college campus, Martha requested for some money, but David would not part with the money. Then things started to get worse. David reported that Martha became quite aggressive and struck him. Not wishing to start a quarrel with his sister, David shoved Martha back in retaliation, causing her to slip and fall backward. Sadly, as she hit the ground, a sharp metal fragment protruding from the ground penetrated her head. David thought he had murdered his sister ever since the injury turned out to be deadly. Cole's report on the confession states that David's first goal was to support his sister. According to David, there was a big hole in Martha's skull and blood was streaming out when he hoisted her up. He claimed that when he first cried out for assistance, he was hopeful that someone would hear him because he was going by. David dug a small grave for his sister, using a piece of a broken sign after realizing that no one was coming to help. When the investigators asked David why he hadn't told his parents the truth, he said that he was afraid of their reaction. According to David, his sister and he were always afraid of their mother Margaret because of her violent and abusive behavior. Nor was their father much better. Thus, he made up the tale that his sister had vanished rather than owning up to her death. David wrote an official affidavit acknowledging his involvement in Martha's sad disappearance now that the truth was out. In an attempt to make up for the time he wasted making the police department go in circles, David sketched up a map showing the spot where he buried Martha. Regretfully, they searched everywhere but were unable to find her remains. David's mother disclosed that despite his admission, he had a history of fabricating stories. She thinks he told falsehoods about Martha being abducted and dying. When David retracted his testimony and said he had just told the cops what they wanted to hear, the issue became even murkier. What then actually became of Martha? Despite the objections of David and Martha's mother, the investigation was finally closed by the police department in 2010. They thought David's confession had been the real deal, but he wouldn't be prosecuted because of legal changes. According to a news statement issued by the sheriff's office, the statute of limitations, the age of the suspect at the time, and other mitigating factors, all of which have changed since 1985, would prevent charges from being brought. Regretfully, we might never discover Martha's fate. David may carry the truth to his grave, since only he truly knows what transpired on that day in 1985. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.